Hi, Leo. Welcome to your March 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Well, I'm not going to go too far into this. You probably have heard about the inordinate amount of transits in Aquarius, your opposite sign, in February. But in case you're kind of new to astrology and you just happen to click on this, you can check that out. I actually have videos on my channel about the longer range transits that are important in this area, namely Jupiter and Saturn being in Aquarius in 2021. That's a separate video or two. In some cases, I split them up. But there were other like shorter term transits, like the Sun. We had Mercury retrograding in Aquarius. We had Venus there. And actually, as the month begins in March, Venus has gone into Pisces as the month begins. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing all of that up is because Aquarius, being your opposite sign, is in the opposite house, the seventh house. So the seventh house is the marriage sector, the relationship sector, and also like legal matters. And so that might have been triggered, something that you had to focus on for some reason. And now that we're dealing with Pisces energy, we're talking about the eighth house, and this is a water house in and of itself. We have a water sign Pisces and a water house, eighth house. And this is the house in the universal chart that Scorpio rules. So all things Scorpionic fit into that eighth house. We have the Sun there. We have Venus there as the month begins. And that can make you very, like, if you're having, if you're working on your relationship and there were some kind of like hiccups in your relationship, I'm talking about primary relationship, they can be deepened with Venus in the eighth house. People talk about sex, and yes, sex can be part of the eighth house. Sex magic, sex alchemy, maybe that's the best word, where it's a transformation. The eighth house is a house of transformation. There's a type of a yogic path called dharmic, tantric yoga. Why did I say dharmic? Tantric yoga, which is yet another way that people seek union with God. And, you can make some jokes about that because using sex for that, some people may think that that's impossible. But, and I'm not going to get into that, but there's just that idea of transforming oneself. And Venus is also about money. So the eighth house can be about money that you get in the form of gifts, in the form of something other than you actually directly working for it. Because the eighth house is shared resources and money that people might share with you. Maybe you get like a great tax rebate. Something comes in that is nice, that you can buy those luxury items that Leos love to live large with. There was a lot of L's. And getting back to when I was talking about the intimacy, that was really a good word to use about the eighth house. Venus here ultimately is about your intimacy with another person, and I would say emotionally, because this is a water house. So getting very close to somebody instead of like a superficial relationship. Bearing your soul with someone or to someone. And that kind of thing deepens a relationship. It creates more bonding. And so on the 3rd of the month, Mars goes into Gemini, which is a sextile to Leo. And it's a sign, two signs before you. So this is going to be the 11th house, which is the house of hopes and wishes, the house of friendships, and the house of the internet. Maybe this is you like really working hard on a website. Perhaps you're fighting with a friend. Mars can be conflicts. Or you're really actively recruiting a social network. And this may be not just for fun and games, but for like career objectives. Who knows? Or some kind of like I was going to say the 11th house also is a social justice warrior. With Mars there, it could be the social justice warrior energy. And so you might be organizing some kind of political thingamajig. Yeah, it's the collective. So it's a social area, but with Mars there can be like this little tinge of I don't know, either conflict or the anger of activism where people are gathering but they're kind of generating this kind of like rebellious type of energy. On the 13th, we have a new moon at 23 degrees of Pisces. So going back to that 8th house. And this is really great. The very next day, or 2 days later, Mercury goes into Pisces. Mercury is your mind and you're like studying. So this is a great time, especially since that we have the transit of Mercury coming on the heels of that new moon. Where it's great for new studies in metaphysics. That would be the 8th house, the occult. That can include astrology. That can include, the tarot, things like that. This is the house of conspiracy theories. So especially with the 11th house and your alliances, if you are someone who is like one of those people who is into that kind of thing, you may even create a website or reach out to other people to have like kind of that alliance. And so that's really good for any kind of like, also I would say like shamanic healing type of things, or channeling with Mercury, channeling people who have crossed over, or learning about how to do those kinds of things. On the 20th, we have our astrological new year, and lucky you, Leo, it's in a fellow fire sign. So this is always a very energizing time for you, given that this new beginning that is true for the collective happens to be for Leo in a sign that forms a trine to you, Aries. And this is coming from the 9th house, which is a fire house in Sagittarius. So it's that new beginning for you, how it affects you is in the area of the abstract knowledge. So on the more mundane level of abstract knowledge, we could talk about the university. It can be about... What else? Well, it's the God house, so it has a religious connotation, a spiritual connotation. I would just say like anything like positive thinking, it's expansive, so that's what positive thinking really is. If you think about it, it's just like not having a narrow view of life and thinking that, there are possibilities. That's not just, we're not limited. So like whether that's helping other people to see that as well, that I think like Leos are one of the original life coach types of people, all fire signs, because I'm a Sag, we just tend to dream big and think positively, in general. And so this is, because the sun is transiting here, it's, bringing that out in you, when the sun is in the 8th house, it's in any of the water houses, it can make a person much more subdued, especially a fire sign, because it's emotional. Sometimes it's looking at the past. Sometimes it's looking within. The eighth house is the shadow side. So kind of like, bringing up those parts of the self that are disowned and having that come up for review. Well, that may be wonderful and it might need to be done, but it's not that cheery. It's not that, it's the ninth house is a lot more, because it's a masculine sign. It's like extroverted. It's out there, not inside. And there's nothing, it's not like saying out is better than in. It's just that for fire signs, we're more acclimated to that. And I think that's really good for us to be able to be more objective sometimes. And that's just how we roll. So for Leo, this is going to be more, this is going to resonate more. And because it's a trine, that just shows that resonance. On the 21st, Venus goes into this house, ninth house. This could be falling in love with somebody from another country, another race, another, like a foreigner, especially since this is dealing with foreign travel, but I would say in an even broader sense, somebody who is, different culturally. So even racially, we can have different cultures, even within the same country, in other words, in the same basic nationality, So things like that, and that broadens your perspective because it's a tolerance. It's like, open-minded. This can, in terms of money, this can be in the form of publishing. I think advertising is ninth house. So, I mean, you might even be spending on advertising, I guess. That's always a possibility. What else? Maybe having money. That's another thing, too. Like if you have been wanting to go to college and you were trying to get some kind of student loans or something like that, the eighth house can really be featured for that because it's dealing with, other people's money, including the government, including, banks and things like that. And so that might be how that all came about. Now you have the money, you can go to college, things like that. On the 28th, we have a full moon at 8 degrees of Libra, and that's going to be for the early Leo sun and rising up to that 8-degree mark. It's probably going to be in your third house of communication, which, you have this 11th house activity, and now you have this third house. So, yes, these are two houses that are connected to the internet. So, maybe finishing some kind of a website, some kind of a training course that gives you certification. I heard another astrologer saying the ninth house is for that. Either one doesn't matter. My understanding is the ninth house is university because it's a longer range program. That the third house is information of a more mundane variety, which means that it's like it's practical knowledge. Instead of studying, medieval basket weaving or something, you're studying something that you can, massage therapy, something like that. So something is coming to that, to a head or to an ending. It could be like in your mind. This is a mental house, the third house, like the ninth house. And it could be like you experiencing a download about that, and realizing that a spiritual download about something to do with your life. I would say most likely of a spiritual nature, given all of that energy in the eighth house. And by the way, that new moon at 23 Pisces is going to form a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces, which has been transing this house for probably, I think about 9 or 10 years. I think it was 2011 or 2012. I keep forgetting. But, does it really matter? Think about how long it's been hanging out in one area. And of all areas, this area that has to do with the occult. Okay, Pisces is the ruler of the 12th house, and that has to do with spiritual matters too. So a lot of Leo people may be having spiritual awakenings and being turned on to these kinds of esoteric topics. Okay, and so that can, when you have a new moon in conjunction with that, that can lead to new opportunities in that realm, So with a full moon in the house of your mind, that can be the dawning of some kind of an idea. This is the fertile time with the full moon, the harvest of some of this. So you have the new moon in the 8th and the full moon in the 3rd. And that's like, okay, yeah, I think I want to become a shaman. I think I want to become a YouTuber and talk about all of my spiritual awakening, my psychic experiences, or I want to become a tarot reader and use the, technology to share my readings or whatever. So just keep that in mind. That's on the 28th. And yeah, so it looks really good, Leo. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.